everyone, it's Justin Adkins here for Creative Scrapbooker Magazine, and I'm going to show you how you can use some awesome ThermoWeb foiling products to help really amp up your summer creations. We're going to go ahead and use the Pool Party Stamp Set by Lawn Fawn because I just adore all these little poolside critters. I just love the little floaties they come with, and I know that it's going to make the most perfect summer project. So on some Copic Express-It paper and Ink on 3 BlackOut Ink, I'm going to go ahead and stamp out my images, including that cute little cat, his little llama friend. We're also going to do 2 of the round floaties, and these are going to be for our critters to lay on. We'll do some flip-flops. We'll also do the beach ball. We'll do the snorkel set and a couple little sets of splash marks that will help add embellishment to our floats. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and color these up with some Copic markers, so please enjoy some music as you watch all of these cute little images get colored up with a fun summer palette. Now I'm going to go ahead and tack down some of the coordinating pool party dies with the Pixie tape, which is a great low tack tape by ThermoWeb, which makes die cutting a breeze because it does hold all of those little dies in place. Once I have all of my dies ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and process this through my die cutting machine, but I will have to do it just a couple times to make sure I get all of my images cut out. Now, using a stitched rectangle die cut of Strathmore Bristol Smooth white paper, I'm going to use some Pixie tape to tack it onto the Lawn Fawn brick stencil, and this is going to help hold my paper in place as I'm going to get involved with some ink blending. So I'm going to start with some T-dye Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to go ahead and blend this around each of the edges of the card. Now I did realize I needed a little bit more stability, so I used a couple more pieces of Pixie tape, and after I put them down, I was good to go. Now we're going to move on to some Saltwater Taffy Distress Oxide ink, and I just love how the Saltwater Taffy blends into that tea-dye color, and it almost gives you a little bit of a terracotta color, which I thought was perfect for a pool deck. Once I'm done, I'll set this panel aside and move on to my next stage of my card. So I'm going to be using the Blue Waves foil transfer sheets by Brutus Monroe for ThermoWeb and this solid black A2 toner card fronts for my card. The reason being is I'm going to be able to use that really fun ripply blue water from the Blue Wave set and turn that black toner card front entirely into that foil pattern. I am using a microfiber cloth just to wipe off the back of my foil along with the front of my toner card front, and because I've got a little extra furry critters around my home, I do like to use a brush to make sure that no pet hair is on top of my toner card front or foil as well. I'm going to go ahead and line these up, use a ruler along with my Olfa rotary trimmer to trim off the excess, and then place it inside of a carrier sheet for my Mink machine. So once that's all ready and lined up, I've got my Mink machine already heated up to the number 3 setting, and I'm going to go ahead and process it through my Mink machine. Now this of course is a mini Mink, and if you've used it before, you'll definitely know that I fast forwarded this part because it does take a little bit of time to process through. Once it's entirely cooled, I'll go ahead and remove my foil from my toner card front, and you will see this perfect transfer of this ripply blue water from the Blue Waves foil from Brutus Monroe. I just love how beautiful it is. Now using the stitched pond die from Lawn Fawn, I'm going to go ahead and use that largest die on top of my Blue Waves foiled sheet so I can die cut that pool shape out, because I know it says pond, but it works perfectly for a pool as well. I'm also going to be using the stitched pond frame from Lawn Fawn because that outer frame is going to layer perfectly on top of that Blue Waves pond shape that we just cut out for our pool. So I'm going to grab some white cardstock, and then I'm also going to use that Pixie tape once again to tack my die onto my paper and ensure that it won't shift around as I'm going through my die cutting machine. Now once I have both of my dies ready to go, I'm going to grab my UltraBond liquid adhesive so I can adhere my frame on top of my pool but pond shape that we have ready to go. So I've sped my video up a little bit and I'm going to show you my process of adhering everything together. Now I've pulled in my background so I can adhere my pool directly on top of my brick patio as well. I'll use some acrylic blocks just to press everything down, and then this panel is good to go. Now using some coral colored cardstock from my stash, I'm going to go ahead and ink blend the edge with Right Persimmon Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to work it up so I get a really nice ombre with that coral color that blends nicely into that Right Persimmon. Now I'm going to grab the Finley's ABC die set, also from Fawn, to spell out the word hello. I'm going to end up lining these up on top of the ink blended portion, and I can only do the HELO, so I'm going to have to die cut this a few times. Of course, I'm using Pixie tape, so I can go ahead and secure my dies. I'll process it through, and I will actually be die cutting enough letters so that I have double of what I need. This method is called stacking, and it's when you adhere a die cut directly on top of the identical die cut below, and this just adds a little extra dimension for that die cut on your project. I'm also going to die cut a Fawn sentiment banner on top of some light yellow cardstock from my stash for another bit to my sentiment. Using a blending brush and some mustard seed distress ink, I'm going to go ahead and blend the bottom edge of my sentiment strip to give a nice ombre distress effect. I'm grabbing my pool party stamp set once again to use the sentiment just floating by to say, and I'm going to go ahead and get this all lined up onto my sentiment and then go ahead and pick it up with my Misty Door. After picking up my sentiment with my Misty Door, I'm going to use some Crackling Campfire Distress ink to stamp out my sentiment and keep all of my color theme going with my card. After lining up all of my word dies onto my glass mat so they're in alignment, I use a piece of Pixie tape to pick them all up and keep them all aligned. I'm going to go ahead and use my UltraBond adhesive on the back of each of these letters so I can go ahead and paste it directly onto my project. So I've moved my panel in the center and I try to get my hello words as level and centered as I can. Once I get them in the right spot, I use my acrylic block for an anchoring and then pull my acrylic tape off. This helps keep everything all aligned. Next, I'm reaching for some ThermoWeb iCraft 3D foam tape in 1/16 of an inch thick so I can adhere them on top of each of my two critters so I can then put the critters on top of each of the floaties. I thought this would be a really fun way to make the critters pop off of the floaties and add a little bit of an extra dimension to my project. Now I do recommend investing in some non-stick scissors for your craft stash because it really helps when working with foam tape. The non-stick coating on your scissors will help prevent that adhesive from gunking up your scissors at all and keep them in tip-top shape. I'm going to also put some of my foam tape onto my sentiment strip as well, using some small little bits to make sure everything is evenly placed with the foam tape on the strip. Once I know where I want it to be, I go ahead and remove the backing from the foam tape and put it into position on my card. Next, using UltraBond liquid adhesive, I begin the process of adhering my little floaty critters along with all of their pool accessories into the card. So I've got both the llama and the kitty all ready to go, and it's time to pull in the little flip-flops, the little snorkel, and then also the beach ball and the splash marks as well. So I reach for my iridescent bubbles from Studio Katia, and I decide on just putting 3 of them directly into the pool because they're going to add that little necessary glitz to help amp up my project. When adhering little embellishments, I always think less is more when it comes to adhesive. You just want to put a little bit of that liquid adhesive down because when you lay an embellishment on top, it'll smush a little bit, and you want to minimize the amount that'll smush out from outside of the embellishments. Once all of my card elements are put into place, I use that UltraBond liquid adhesive to adhere my card front to an A2 sized card base. And there you have it, a foiled summer card just perfect to send to a loved one using some awesome thermal web foiling products both on the card and behind the scenes as well to make sure everything is nice and aligned. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Creative Scrapbooker YouTube page, and you can also check me out on @JustinNoteByJustin on Instagram as well. Thank you all so much, happy crafting, and have a wonderful summer. Goodbye!